Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Hello, Bat family, and welcome to this episode, number 176 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at Batpod Network. You know what I'm saying? It's on Twitter. They do the @ thing a lot. Today is January the 28th of 2021. I'm Garret Grev. Thank you for listening. You're not just going to listen to me. So I'm going to bring on a couple buddies, my Bat brothers, if you will, to have the conversation with me. So this is going to be more enjoyable for all of us. And the first one up, my main man, the big Italian, Peter Verra. He's a senior contributor to Batman on Film. Once again, he is half of the Straight Outta Gotham dynamic duo. And listeners, he is a newly hooked Star Wars fan. Peter, welcome into the show, buddy. How are you doing tonight?
I had to find out what everyone has been complaining about for like 20 years. Has it been 20 years? I don't remember when these movies came out. Maybe it's like 15. But no. We recently just binge watched the prequels. Okay. Rick Shue did you proud. 2 out of 3 weren't bad. 2 was just a little long and boring, but I dug them. And Rise of Skywalker I thought was pretty badass. So like, I don't know what all you Star Wars fans are complaining about.
Well, I mean, so it depends which ones you're complaining about, whether or not you're complaining
I feel like
about.
they complain about all of them from Last Jedi to now.
Yeah, you could be complaining about something 40 plus years ago to like 4 years ago and anything in between, and even more recently. You know, the BOF podcast a couple years ago did some satellite shows, and now that we've got you filling in the gaps of the Star Wars repertoire that you were missing, maybe one day we need a plan to bring that back.
I mean, I'd love to take the view of the very casual fan. So sure. I'd be down to talk about it in the most casual sense, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, that's accessible. That means we can cast a broad net for all the listeners out there.
I'm down to talk some R2-D2. I love his noises.
He's the best, right?
He's great. It's funny, like I think he pretty much saves every Star Wars movie. That robot does something that prevents something from getting blown up or somebody from dying. And it feels like every movie he's in. So I feel like he's the hero of the series.
Well, he's adorable. And you're adorable, Peter. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And my other Bat brother, once again to the show, Mr. Ryan Lower. No, wait, Lauer. It's only spelled like Lower. What?
Yeah.
He's a BOF contributor. He's a Ninja Turtle aficionado. And he is the world's biggest Batman RIP fan. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, that's, I mean, all that's mostly accurate, I guess. Radical. I think RIP could have been among the greatest Batman stories of all time if R2-D2 was in that book. But sadly, he was not. So
I'm down for like a Batman book with Harold and R2-D2.
Yeah,
that'd be tizite. But Garret, thanks for having me. I like talking Batman with you. Like talking Batman with Peter. So let's do this.
It should be a lovely time. Well, we've got a nice show lined up for you here. I hadn't necessarily set out to say this is going to be an every week podcast, but, I have fun doing it. And we actually have quite a bit of Bat content to review. So tonight we've got a fair bit of news. In fact, I actually trimmed out some news because we've had so much stuff going on just for the sake of brevity. It's the soul of wit, after all. We're going to play a fun little game. Peter, I didn't tell you this. I'd like more thoughts on Batwoman because you intrigued me last week. And then we are going to play a little bit of catch up around the DC Publishing Initiative Future State. So with that, fellas, let's get into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right. So the biggest news I think that has probably popped up this past week just hit today. And now there are whisperings of it from a couple sources, and then the trades really sort of ran with it this evening. And that is that our Tim Drake has been now cast, allegedly, I think, or is it, it's in the trades. We call it confirmed, right?
Yeah. I mean, Variety, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's Variety. Normally you can take it to the bank. Tim Drake has been cast in Titans Season 3 by actor Jay Licurgo. Jay Licurgo, the name might not be familiar to you, but his face might be familiar to you. Why is that? Well, Jay is actually playing a character in Matt Reeves' The Batman as well. So we are, 3 seasons in to Titans, and we've already got our third Robin. That's really something. Ryan, what was your thought on the news today when this broke?
Well, I thought that was pretty cool. Because we haven't gotten a Tim Drake on screen in live action. So that's great. I mean, for a lot of people in our generation, that's their Robin. Tim Drake is their Robin. Dick Grayson's still my favorite, but I love Tim Drake. I think he's great. So I was like, oh, awesome. Great. Haven't seen this guy in anything except his scared shitless look in the Batman trailer. I'm pretty sure he's the one that's watching Batman beat the hell out of a guy, and it cuts to him, and he's like, looks like he's crying because he's scared. So that's pretty good acting, but I haven't seen him in anything. My only semi-red flag was what Variety kind of described as far as the character goes.
Well, you beat me to it.
Did I? Okay, I'll wait.
No, I want to hear what you think about it, but let me read this first, and then I want to get both of your takes on it. So this is just the opening paragraph from the Variety article. Drake is described as a streetwise kid who's managed to grow up on the toughest streets without losing his indelible belief in heroism. His easygoing demeanor is backed up by near-genius mind, a natural detective with a perception of detail far beyond his years. Fans of the Batman comics will recall that Drake served with Batman as the third Robin. So, Peter, I wanted to get your thoughts. Did you have any particular reaction to this description of Tim Drake, the way that Variety wrote it up?
Yeah, this is a take. This isn't Rob Myers' Tim Drake, that's for sure. Tim Drake is kind of a suburban kid. It seems like this is leaning more towards a streetwise, like they said in their description, Jason Todd-ish type character, even though we already have Jason Todd. Tim Drake historically was Batman's partner while living with his parents. And then Tim's father suffered the fate of death by Captain Boomerang in Identity Crisis. So, while he did, he did get edgier as time went on, but it's an interesting description. It's an interesting take. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, but Titans likes adding a little edge to their characters. That's kind of what they do.
So
remember F Batman?
I was going to say,
so,
do we think he's going to drop an F-bomb?
I mean, the only question is who's going to drop it first, Tim Drake or Ben Affleck? So we're gonna find out who drops the F-bomb first. But I'm interested to see what they do. I think all the casting choices that they have done on Titans have been spot on. Everyone's done a fantastic job, and like I've said this on my own podcast. Getting a Titan show into the third season is quite an achievement in my eyes. So I think they've earned the leniency of, several takes and liberties at this point, just because I never thought I was going to see a live action Starfire.
Yeah. I don't love everything they do. Starfire, by the way, is not one of the things that I don't love. I do love the take on Starfire. Mm-hmm. I think they've done a really nice job there. Batman is actually what comes to mind as like, oh, not my choice. But you're right, to get this show into the third season while increasing its production budget season by season is an accomplishment on its own. Laura, you're the one that was going to mention the Variety article first, so let me swing it back over to you. Anything to add just on kind of what we picked up and took away from what Variety had for us?
In no way am I writing any kind of story in my head before I watched or anything like that at all. Just in reading that description at first, I just kind of felt like, oh, this almost could. If you said this was going to be Jason Todd entering the show, I would feel, oh yeah, that's kind of a description of Jason Todd. But there's a little bit of a blend of Tim Drake and how they're talking about how he's a genius and his intelligence. And as we all know, it's like, oh yeah, that's a trademark of Tim Drake. So of course I'm excited at the aspect the character is going to be in live action, and we could possibly get in live action in the same scene, Dick Grayson, Barbara Gordon, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake. And that's pretty cool to me. And no matter which regard of if Jason Todd is Red Hood yet and Barbara's going to be commissioner, not Batgirl, but still those characters could all end up in the same scene together. And that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. The one thing that I was wondering if one of you guys would bring up, just because it struck me as an odd little tidbit to include, is in the second paragraph of that article, where they mention, that Lycurgo, I don't know. I mean, let's just pretend like I'm saying.
Don't ask me.
Yeah, I know. Peter's not your
Pete,
go-to
give us
guy.
your take on how his name is pronounced.
I thought I said Lycurgo.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
They do mention that he has a supporting role in the Batman, but then they throw in that it's still unclear if he'll be playing Drake in the film as well. And I was just like, really? I doubt it. Like, I don't think there's anything that would surprise me more than if, of all the DC properties going on, to link in and connect to the continuity of the Batman. Nothing would shock me more than if they're like, Titans, that's the one, tie it in, sign it up. This is the thing.
Here's the thing. I dive deep into the trenches of Twitter. And there was a lot of talking and rumors that he was cast as to be a Robin in a future The Batman sequel. Like, that rumor is out there in Twitter. And when this news broke, I said to myself, this sounds like a really bad game of telephone where,
right,
it just got heard and heard and heard. And he's cast as Tim Drake Robin in Titans, and he just happens to be in the Reeves movie. Just, because, maybe he's just a Warner Media guy now. Like, maybe this is like one of the coming.
Maybe he's playing Tim Drake in Titans and Tim Drake and Matt Reeves the Batman, but not the same kind of Tim Drake. Boom. There it is.
Maybe it gets explained. Maybe it gets explained in Flashpoint.
I was gonna say, this seems like we could use Barry to run around really fast and figure it out. And
he was the Robin who got killed in BVS.
That seems like an oversimplification.
There you go.
All right. So speaking of the Batman, word's been out there that the Batman is looking to finish filming. It'll be in post for a bit, but to finish filming here in March, which would put that about 1 year, give or take a few days or a week or so from its impending release date in 2022 at this point. There have been some rumblings, and also perhaps an article crafted by the editor-in-chief himself up over at batmanonfilm.com, suggesting potentially that we might get a bit of press, a little bit of maybe a teaser, maybe an image, just to kind of keep the appetite wet.
Ooh.
Peter, do you think we're going to get something? And if you do, what do you think it's going to be? Something in live action, or like just a still pick or something like that?
I'm saying still pick. And what do I know what we're going to get? No, but I've been listening to this crazy Texan for like 20 years now, and my man is usually on point. But I got to say, like, what I want Oswald. I want more of Oswald, because we only got a few shots of him in that trailer, and everyone knows I love my Penguin. I'm dying to see what Farrell has up his sleeve. I mean, DeVito will always be my number one. I don't care what anybody has to say about Black Goo or anything. Like, I think DeVito's amazing. I want Penguin. I want to still the Penguin, maybe in like an Iceberg Lounge or some sort of, I don't know, setting of just illegal activity of some sort. That's kind of what I want, me personally. But if Bill says it's coming, you guys have been listening to this site for how many years now? He's usually spot on.
Well, and Bill is very Bill doesn't write an article unless he thinks that something's on its way.
Yeah.
So when I had heard there's some talk on the interwebs, and then when I saw Bill post something, I was like, yeah, this seems likely. So, Mr. Lauer, assuming that something is likely, if you could have your druthers, what would you choose it to be?
My personal, what do I want to see? I would like to see some kind of beat of Pattinson in the suit. Doesn't have to be a full-on 3-minute action sequence, anything like that. It could be 15-second something to say, coming next March, and you just see him if he comes flying off the building with his wings spread, or he hops out of the Batmobile, cool. Or we see the Batmobile take off down the street. Something of him in the suit, and we get a full, because there's just been, prior to that, the Dome, Fandom. Prior to that, there was just there's a lot of criticism of him in the suit and everything until all of a sudden, until we saw him in live action, in that trailer with it. And then it's they didn't all go away, but it kind of, it eased that a little bit. And
Yeah,
I'd like to see
it sort of quelled some of those concerns for sure.
I think I'd like to see another head to toe shot of him in the suit, jumping off the building, spreading the wings or something like that, or the cape. That'd be awesome. I think that's what I'd like to see the most, because of course I want to see more, but also we're going to be a year out. They don't need to give us anything a year out.
That's why I'm thinking photo still instead of some kind of teaser trailer or something like that.
I mean, we're all still watching that 5-month-old trailer now, every day. And
yeah,
it's still
you better
awesome.
believe
So
it.
we don't need to see another trailer.
I may have stopped for a day or two to watch Kong vs. Godzilla. I'm nonstop. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going back to Old Faithful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's first of all, I think the level of excitement Kong vs. Godzilla is getting is just awesome. I was a huge fan of the original when I was a kid. We had it on VHS, and I watched it a million times.
VHS,
the Facebook group, real fans for real movies, the Facebook group that I think all of us, engage in some conversation in. It feels like it's just converted over to King Kong versus Godzilla for the last couple of weeks, which is just a ton of fun. But you're right, that trailer that's kind of been keeping everything alive for the last 5 months or so, as good as it is, I think it might be time to add some new material, into the marketing plan. And, Bill writes on the website that, the quote he got from a trusted source was, Warner Brothers is great at marketing. So they're going to take, advantage of an opportunity to do this. For me, guys, if you didn't ask, but I'll share what I would like to, and what I would prefer it to be. I would love it to be a series of posters or stills dedicated to the main cast characters. So not just something here in March, but maybe then something in April and May and then June. And we sort of work our way through the cast of characters with some, profile, movie one sheet type, approach that they could release and kind of stretch out the anticipation over the next, maybe even months. So that's what I would pick. I do, and it kind of plays into both, right? Because Lauer, I'll say I'd love to see Pattinson in action, in motion as Batman, like that. I wouldn't be upset with that at all. But then, Peter, to your point, I am also very intrigued to see more of Colin Farrell, and I am incredibly interested with just where they are taking the Penguin and why they cast Farrell and then made him almost unrecognizable. Like something very distinctive has to be up Reeve's sleeve. And I
both of those points for sure, Garrett. I think because Farrell's he's a good actor. He's tried to, avoid this, I'm an action superstar. I'm this superstar, trying to avoid a label as an actor. He just wants he's a, I almost want to say a character actor, but I mean that in a good way of he's an A-lister, but he's just really good. And then when I didn't even know that was him the first time I watched the trailer, it's man, Reeves has got to have some awesome idea for Cobblepot in this. Right.
It's funny you mentioned character actor, because I'm thinking about the one guy we haven't, and we've at least heard Andy Serkis's voice, but the one guy that we haven't seen or heard anything from, probably one of the biggest character actors in Hollywood, Mr. John Turturro. Falcon. Where is he? I would love to see him as something as Falcone, maybe him and Farrell together doing something crazy. Just, I don't know, sitting at a table eating some spaghetti, just doing what mafia guys do, at a speakeasy or something like that. I'd be down for that. I mean,
speaking of spaghetti tonight, Peter, I actually made a nice big batch of spaghetti for dinner.
but you probably had like whole grain pasta or like spinach noodles,
red lentil pasta, and it was a delight.
I'm sure it was. I
Right.
don't hold back on the carbohydrates, boys.
Okay, on to our last bit of news here. Also recently announced, we've got some beloved DC characters coming to drive out 4 new DC Showcase animated shorts that are going to get released by Warner Brothers between this year and next, focusing on Commandy, The Losers, Blue Beetle, and Constantine. I'll tell you guys first, I'm pumped to get the shorts back. It used to be one of my absolute favorites. And I know, like, they always kind of stayed around for a bit, but for a while there, it wasn't as consistent in front of the DC animated movies. But those used to be just one of my favorite things to kind of see what was going to be in advance, especially years back, right? When the late 2000 aughts or whatever they call it, before maybe everything was as publicized on the internet, or at least I wasn't following it as closely. A lot of those shorts were kind of surprises before the animated features. And then they sort of died off for a little bit, but there are some absolutely fantastic ones. And it's cool for me that they're bringing them back. Lauer, do you have, of these 4 listed, sort of favorite that you're looking forward to?
Well, I know Constantine, they kind of said was going to head like a release in 2022 that's going to have like a bunch of them together in a release. It's going to be kind of like a longer one. I'd almost say Constantine, because I've actually kind of enjoyed him in some of the animated stuff that I've seen. I mean, I just got done reading Darwin Cook's The New Frontier for only the second time in my life, and it's really like gotten me. And I read a bunch of like behind the scenes stuff and how he'd been looking back in the golden age, and it's kind of piqued my interest in exploring the DC's golden age a little bit more. And this new comic that had come out called Generations Shattered, that featured Commandy, and then in that New Frontier, they talked about the Losers. So just both of those have kind of like piqued my interest. And so in the same week that they've been piquing my interest, they also announced that some of those shorts are coming, one on Commandy, one on the Losers. I think those two explore a little bit, because Blue Beetle, I can go get some Blue Beetle and Batman Brave and the Bold. Constantine, we've seen him in some other stuff, but yeah, Commandy and the Losers are they've got my interest. They've hooked me a little bit.
Yeah, the Losers is interesting. I wonder if Chris Evans will make a return to voice any characters.
And I was just going to say, didn't they make a live action version of the Losers or something like that?
It was good, man. I enjoyed that movie.
Is it on HBO Max? Is it in the DC Hub?
It is on a streaming service. I can't say right now for sure if it's HBO Max, but I can only assume.
Was that taken? Because the original The Losers, aren't they in their World War II era, I think?
Yeah.
But The Losers, that movie, it wasn't, was it?
No. It was not a period piece.
It was modernized.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember watching it once and I liked that, but
I've never seen it.
I've only seen it a couple times. I think I might have. It might have been. Gosh, I hate talking about things that I don't for sure know on air. It might have been long enough ago that I rented it off a Redbox and watched it like twice before I returned it, and haven't seen it since. It feels like it might have been a 2012-ish type release, somewhere in there. Don't hold me to that. Peter,
you don't know what you're talking about, Grev.
I know. Get this guy. Why'd Bill give this guy the microphone? Get him out of here. Which of these are you looking forward to, man?
Well, the first off, my favorite DC showcase that they've ever done was the Catwoman one before.
Ooh, it's so good.
Batman Year One. I really enjoyed that one. And
Pete, you need to watch the Green Arrow. I know you don't like Green Arrow. Can you let me finish my sentence, Lauer? Awesome. I didn't know we were allowed to say which ones are our favorites, so I need to jump in there.
I do what I want, okay?
Or you're going to get me pops now.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't tell Peter what to do. He's Italian. He's from the East Coast. It makes me nervous.
I know. I need to know my place. Sorry,
and I was just going to say the Green Arrow one is really great as well. But I'm with Lauer on this one. Like, John Constantine, he's gotten, like, I feel like he's headlined 2 animated movies recently. So, like, I don't really need to see more from it. And there was another one on DC, not DC Universe, HBO Max. DC Universe is dead. That is up there. So like Constantine's got his fill. I mean, Commandy and Blue Beetle, I'm really excited for. I'm not a huge Brave and the Bold fan as much as other people, but so like I can go for a more serious take on the Blue Beetle and see what it's all about. But like Shattered Generations?
Generation Shattered.
Generation Shattered. Commandy was in there, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, I forgot about this guy. So like I'm just down to see him in a short thing, and if it piques interest and gets some downloads and people are into it, and it gets to some kind of interesting time jumping non-Flash superhero thing, I'm down for it. Like I'm down for something new and different.
Well, guys, I reviewed Justice League over at the website, all through the Scott Snyder and James Tynion the fourth's run, and Commandy actually shows up and plays a fairly key role through one of the stretch of issues. And for that, and I was like, oh dang, Commandy, because at the time they were really sort of like reaching all the way back and saying like golden era stuff, silver age stuff, like this is all sort of living and breathing, kind of that Grant Morrison-esque approach to DC. And I was like, Commandy's so sweet, because I certainly wasn't old enough to be reading Commandy when he had a more prominent role. So I really got a kick out of that to read more of the character. So I will say that one is mine. But those are coming out.
About him. Like I forget he's even around, and then this pops up, and it's just like, oh yeah, like this is cool. Like he deserves some due.
Yeah, who doesn't love? I mean, I'm a big He-Man fan. Apparently, loincloths are just what I'm into. So these are coming out.
I'm more of a Tarzan guy, so we get it.
Yeah, Tarzan, sure. 2021 to 2022. Check them out. All right, guys, it's a trivia game. Who doesn't love a trivia game? I know I do, and because I'm hosting, you guys have to play it. All right, here we are.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me. What are you?
Okay, guys. So this is the deal. I'm giving you clues. 3 clues are just normal, like everyday clues. Pretty good clues. Maybe you can guess it. Maybe you can't. The 4th clue is like my giveaway clue. If you can get the answer before I get to clue number 4, you raise your hand and you let me know. Okay? You hold your answer. If the other person wants to wager a guess, they can do it. If they want the giveaway clue, they can do that. Mm-hmm. Then we see who got it right. If there's a tie, awesome. You're both winners in my book. If someone got it earlier than the other, that person's Batman. You're just their Robin.
Yes. All right. I'm so clue 4 right here.
So here we are. I'm going to give you this one. This is a character. We're going to do that. Last week was a character. This is another character. This character is a scientist. Okay. Clue 1. Character is a scientist. I know that really narrows it down in the world of comic books. Clue number 2. This character debuted in 1970. Was created by Frank Robbins and Neil Adams with Julie Schwartz. That's a lot of info for just the second clue. All right, we're going to keep going. No one's raising their hand, listeners. I know this is not a visual medium, so I'm here to help.
I only got one scientist. So.
These guys have not raised their hands. Okay. Clue number 3. This character has been rumored to appear in multiple live-action features, but has yet to show up on film. Peter has got his hand up. Ryan, would you like to wager a guess, or would you like the 4th giveaway clue?
I mean, I think I know who Pete's going to answer, so I don't want to guess. I want to hear the 4th clue.
All right. Well, that's good, because the listeners, it's more interesting for the listeners that way too. All right. Clue number
compelling music.
Clue number 4. I got to work on that. Clue number 4. This character had his animated debut in a prime time special on September 6th, 1992.
Okay. I do have a guess.
All right, Peter, you've both written them down. Mm-hmm. Peter, since you raised your hand first, flip your page over and tell me and the listener who your guess is.
Is it Hugo Strange?
It is not Hugo Strange. Ryan, you get a chance to be Batman. Who is your guess?
I feel like there's one that's totally obvious, but I thought that somebody else created him, so I'm going to go with who I initially had a guess, and that would be Professor Milo.
No, I've stumped you yet again. I am Batman. You are just a couple of heralds.
Damn it.
This character is Man-Bat. Man-Bat was
that seemed too obvious.
In 1970 by Frank Robbins, Neil Adams with some help from Julie Schwartz. And he was the villain that premiered in the first ever debut episode of Batman the Animated Series. It was a primetime special on Fox that came out in September of 1992. I thought
I'm so mad at myself right now,
guys. I thought I made this one too easy.
Man.
But
I think Langstrom seemed too easy. I thought that was the easy one. For some reason, I got tripped up because I thought Denny O'Neil co-created him.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. Once again, guys, I will blame Wikipedia if I'm wrong, but they haven't done me wrong so far.
We are not fans.
I'm a bad Batman. I've got 40 long boxes, and I can't.
We don't know. We don't know.
Here's the deal, guys. I don't sit around at night coming up with like the easiest, most giveaway game. I'm trying to get people educated here, so thank you for helping me.
You plant just enough
thank
doubt
you for being
for us
losers.
to think we don't know.
And I'm reviewing the Batman the Man-Bat book that's coming out. I think it was in April, so it's like
I was going to say you already signed up for that one, Peter. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Well, that was everyone's favorite trivia game. What are you? And here we are. We've got our final two segments of the. I don't know if you're listening to this in the evening. We're recording it in the evening. I guess it could be your morning. I would like to kick it over to Peter. Ryan, if you've watched this as well, please feel free to weigh in. Batwoman. I got some messages and some tweets last week about our coverage, our quick little hit on the Batwoman season 2 debut. Peter, what'd you think of episode 2? I want to check back in on Batwoman.
It kind of stumbled on old school Batwoman, and it was kind of a bummer. Like there's certain points I'm just like, this is what you guys did, and you made this decision. Like it just it was. I kind of like the caper where it was like, you know, there were like these evil vampire bats, and now the people in Gotham Square who are begging for Batwoman to, you know, show herself because everyone's afraid she's gone, and then Batwoman does, and the bats are out there, and it's just like, you know, just Batwoman gives like this speech on top of a building, and it's just, I don't know, it just kind of fell flat. And but how she figured out what to do and how to you know, rid the bats from Gotham Square was interesting, and it went backwards. Episode 2 was not as good as episode 1, so I hope episode 3 rebounds. So we'll see. So I guess you could say Batwoman has been up and down so far.
How many meatballs do you give it on your scale of 1 to 4 meatballs, Peter?
I give this 1.5 meatballs.
All right, that was Ben, your Batwoman check-in, 1.5 meatballs. Let's not talk about that bad meatball dish anymore tonight. Hopefully you get up to 2 meatballs next week. All right, guys. So the big thing going on in the world of DC Comics has been Future State. It was announced. Different iterations of what this was going to be have been announced and in the works for a long time. Back, you know, even when Dan DiDio was still calling the shots, and it's morphed since then a number of times. But let me just read this really quick for the listeners that might not be caught up with what Future State is. The sort of intro blurb in front of the beginning of every Future State comic book, at least that I've read, has been this: the multiverse has been saved from the brink of destruction. With victory comes new possibilities. As the triumph of our heroes shakes loose the very fabric of time and space, from the ashes of death metal comes new life for the multiverse and a glimpse into the unwritten worlds of tomorrow. So, guys, I in particular, not just because you're my pals and I love talking to you, I wanted to have you both join because you are the 2 reviewers over on BatmanOnFilm.com of these sort of flagship Bat books, what used to be Detective Comics and what used to be Batman, you know, in the Future State world, Dark Detective and the next Batman. So I thought, you know, I am not super well versed in Future State. It seemed, quite honestly, a bit of an intimidating project to launch into, a new sort of world to invest in with DC, just coming out of, I mean, how many years in the making was the overall metal saga. To like jump into this, very specific, if contained thing wasn't something I initially was eager in. But quite honestly, talking to both of you and reading your reviews has made me more interested, and I've been reading, but I thought, why ask me about it? Why talk to me about it? I can talk to you guys who are reviewing the books. I thought the listeners out there might benefit from a bit of that. So, Lauer, maybe I would swing it over your way first. What can you tell us, first of all, I think, are we 2 issues in on the next Batman at this point? I'd love just to kind of hear first, give me the lay of the land for what's going on in the title and what your impression's been so far.
Well, we find out over these first 2 issues that Bruce Wayne / Batman is dead. We don't know how. It's just kind of mentioned casually. And there's a new Batman who's got a cape and cowl, and no butt chin is revealed because this thing is covering the entire face. And we get a little insight into the Fox family, not Lucius, his son's daughter, wife, and we're kind of just finding out this futuristic take on Gotham and how crime's still rampant. And there's a police force called the Magistrate that is taking out anybody in a mask, no ifs, ands, or buts. And so that definitely calls for some troublesome people as well as Batman. They're on the same level of these magistrate people. They're trying to take him out. And there's a murder and committed by 2 people. And Batman, he goes to solve this and figure out to track these 2 people down. And it seems like there is more to this story than we think. Ooh. And then it's left at a little bit of like a cliffhanger. And that's kind of like the lay of the land for the next Batman.
It sounds very intriguing, very interesting. The casualness of, in the promo materials leading up and then reading through, because I read, I jumped in on the titles, both of these titles, after both issues had been released. And the casualness, I read the next Batman first before Dark Detective. The casualness of Bruce Wayne's dead was very odd to me. I'm like, wait a minute, what did I miss? Was there a 0 issue? Was there some sort of annual that I missed out on? Was there a free comic book day that I didn't understand? None of those things. It's just, that's the storytelling. And written by John Ridley. I can't remember. I have it in my notes here. The artist, I want to say, is it Matt Darrington? Nick Darrington.
Nick
Sorry.
Darrington,
Your
yes.
name is not Matt. Nick, I'm sorry.
He's on the first issue.
Okay. Yeah. So it's got a little some changing talent.
Yes.
I was impressed with what I read. I thought it was enjoyable. Before we get any further into it, I think maybe Peter, if you could talk about Dark Detective, because this is what I read after the next Batman, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is filling in the gaps I think I felt during the next Batman. So, Pete, give us the rundown on Dark Detective.
Yeah, Dark Detective was released the week after next Batman #1.
Oh, so I accidentally read it in order.
Yeah, so you did. So you
well
did as intended. So don't worry about it. You did it the right way.
Well, lucky me.
Yeah, no, Dark Detective's cool. I think her name is Mahiro Tamaki, is writing this really cool. Just it's a Bruce Wayne story first and foremost. Him trying to find his way and trying to, issue 1 is basically him thinking about should he become Batman, should he continue on as being Batman, and it deals with his death, and it seems to be a story that is very grounded in our own reality. It's a story where Bruce Wayne can walk around Gotham Square and no one notices him, even though his eulogy is on this 1,000-foot video board because everyone's got their face stuck in their phone. So it's a very relatable story, and it's got elements of Blade Runner. It's got neon everywhere like Batman Forever, and issue 2 pulls a lot of like homage from Dark Knight Returns and just action movies from the 80s that we all know and love, and I think it's actually the better book of the 2 Batman stories. It's also the cheaper book, and I'm really digging it. I remember I was talking to you about it earlier, and you were like, I read your review and it seemed like your review is A+ material and you gave it an A-. And I was like, yeah, that's because of the price. It is, it's a $6 book, and they put in 2 backstories that you don't really want to read or don't really necessarily need to read. So that factors into the whole thing when when I'm writing my review is, if you're going to buy this, they're making you buy extra pages that you probably don't want. But
I think that's such a good point, Peter. And I can't say, I will read some reviews. I go and Google the issues and punch in review, just because sometimes, especially if I have, I'm undecided or have some different thoughts that I'm working through on a title, I want to see what some other folks say. Obviously, I've got you guys I can talk to and some of the other Bat Boys. But I like to see, what else is out there, outside of the inner circle here. And I haven't seen a lot of people talk to the format that Future State is using. And most of the time they're just sticking to the story. But I think you are remiss to not bring into the conversation the fact that you're getting a story, you're getting a backup or two, and you're paying a $6 to $8 price tag depending on the book you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I wonder how accessible that's making the book to the curious reader, because a lot of times when publishers start these initiatives, it's kind of a play to get people to come on and start on something new and fresh. It's saying, hey, you know what, you might have been intimidated by convoluted backstories and worried that you haven't read the last 10 years of comic books, so you couldn't ever possibly jump on, but we're doing this new thing and here's your chance. Well, with an $8 price tag and a couple B-League backups to each book, I wonder how successful this is going to be for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it affects Lauer's next Batman more than it does mine. His book's $8.
It's an extra $1, right?
Yeah.
Mine's $8 for the next Batman, and the story, it'd be easier to recommend it if it was the Dark Detective story with the 2 backups, because it's like, well, the main story is, well, I can't even say like the main story, I guess, because there's 3 stories in one issue, and they're pretty equal in length. But I mean, the cover is Batman. But it's hard to justify spending that much money for a story that I think is just okay. Even 2 issues in, it's okay. And then I feel like the initial issue kind of lacked any kind of hook to really get me wanting to, like, oh man, this is great. I'm really interested and I'm intrigued. It was the art that really won me over. I thought Nick Darrington's art was fantastic. And then it almost like it flip-flopped in issue number 2, where the art, forgive me, I already forget the artist. It was fine. It was just a little bit more standard. The story got a little bit better, like with a little bit more elements added to it. But I mean, still, I mean, they're both issues. I think I gave like a B- overall in the Batman parts. It's like, man, to spend $16 on okay is like, that's a tough sell.
And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but are these both going to be 4-issue runs? So okay, so if it's $8 a book, and you're a Bat fan, right? You're listening to this podcast. You like the other characters too, but your primary draw is the Batman story in each of these. What could the trade possibly be when it's inevitably released with the 4 Batman main stories from each issue? Is it going to be $20? And you would have had to spend $32 newsstand to get it.
They're gonna have to combine something, because initially it's only going to be 4 regular issues of things. Mm-hmm. And to put that in one collected book, I feel like for their own cost, they've got to add something else.
That feels close to like a Earth 1 length book. But I mean, people have already read it. Earth 1 works in some ways because it didn't come in floppy first. So if you want that, you have to get the thick deluxe hardcover print. So I guess you've got a good point there. They're going to have to double up. Now, Peter, flip side for you, man, I'm with you, Ryan. When I read your reviews and I read the issues first and then your reviews, right on the same page. Pete, man, when I read this Dark Detective book and I read your reviews, I'm like, this is kind of knock your socks off Batman storytelling here. And I don't know if it just means that's just like, hey, I'm a Bruce Wayne fan. I'm not a Terry McGinnis fan. I'm not even a Dick in the Cowl fan. I'm a Bruce Wayne Batman fan. I can read that other stuff. It's fine. I enjoy it. But the character that has my bat heart is my Batman, Bruce Wayne. Yeah. And man, I just feel like it's so well done, from the design of the city to if you haven't read Peter's review, read Peter's review. I told him this is the finest review I've ever heard him I've ever read of his. From the way that he describes the cityscape to the action beats, it's all there. It's all really well done, and it's because the product is really good too, right, Peter? I'm not going to give you all the credit.
The creative team behind this of Tamaki, Mora, and Bellare, the colorist. It's amazing. I was a big fan of what Tomasi was doing with Walker, and I thought that book was beautiful and detective, but it's funny, like as good as Dark Detective is, I'm just like, I can't wait to get back to regular detective comics and see what this creative team does. Cause I'm really pumped because they're going to continue on.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that they're the team.
No, they are. They're
back in March. So that's cool.
And that's the best part for me is like, okay, like
Yeah.
I've 2 issues in, I'm hooked. This story's compelling. It's a mystery. It's fresh storytelling and it's relatable. And you're just like, wow. And I really got my first run with Tamaki. She did a Wonder Woman arc not too long ago that involved Maxwell Lord and his daughter, and right before the movie, so it was kind of like for lack of a better word, it was a tie-in, getting ready for that film, and and that's where I got really pumped. I was like, she's doing a really good job of just characterization. She gets Wonder Woman, she gets her motivations, what makes Diana Prince Wonder Woman is all on display here. So it's like, if you could do that with one of the big three, in my mind, it's like you can do that with any of the big three. So like when she gets announced as she's the new Dark Detective and detective writer, I'm like, this is great. It's in good hands. I've read this, different character, but it's like, if you're able to hold that, one of those characters up there, like I firmly believe that you can carry the other one on the back of your shoulders, and it's great. And just the movie, it's the movies from the 80s that like Moore is pulling, well, they both are, but like it's just inspired from. It's like, like in my review I read it, it's like RoboCop riding Kane and at the end of RoboCop 2, like that's cool. And then when Peacekeeper 1 is chasing after Bruce Wayne, it's very similar to The Fugitive, and then there's like this one panel that looks like Superman with all the radiation from Dark Knight Returns, and it's just cool. And it's a mixture of storytelling and color and artwork, and they're really in sync and in unison, and it's so good when a comic book just hits all those strides at once. And it's really great for the medium, and the fact that it's not $8 is even better. But
that's nice.
I don't think it's too expensive.
You threw out some of those 80s movies references in your reviews, and then when you and I were texting about it the other day, a movie that came to mind for me when I was reading it, and I should go back and rewatch it just to make sure I'm remembering things correctly. It kind of reminded me in some ways of Ryan Gosling in Drive. Which is it? Driver.
I can't remember. I have to look it up.
But that was sort of like 80s fueled, not neon colored, kind of, certainly ultra violent in that movie.
It makes you think of like Batman Forever and stuff like that, and like Barbara Ling would be just so proud, and because it's like her Gotham City's finally in print,
right?
And it's just interesting though, because like this is the one issue I have with like Future State, because it's like I don't know when exactly what part of the future everything's happening. Like in one backup story, Stephanie Brown, spoiler, is in jail. In another story, she's helping out Robin, try to steal something from the magistrate. Like what time frame is the next Batman? I think that's a little bit farther in the future than.
Well, and that's what I was gonna.
It seems all over the place, and like where's Nightwing? In the Titans book, he's doing Titan stuff, but he's in Gotham City, hanging out in Arkham Asylum. Like it just kind of seems all over the place at this point.
Yeah, it does seem to jump around a lot. And I was going to ask, Lauer, with the next Batman, are you getting the feel that this is, deeper into the future? Because that was the impression I got. I don't know if you've read it that way. And then, but the other thing is we've sort of heard bits and pieces about what is going to continue on past Future State. Are you getting the impression that this is a 2-month thing, or are we going to see some of the characters in this book stick around for a while here?
On the next Batman, I don't. Well, this version is going to kick off in digital first in I don't remember if it's February or March, and then actual issues themselves, I believe, launch later on in like April. So this story is going to continue in its own thing. As far as popping into the main titles of Batman and Detective when they come back in March, like I don't know. Like
It's a bit confusing.
It is. There's something that was handed out in the comic shops, like a future state kind of like guide, like in December. That kind of like, talked about what future state is and, what's going to happen in Metropolis, what's going to happen in Gotham. And they have a timeline at the bottom. And it said in 2025, that's where Batman was. And 2027 was Dark Detective. So for me, I read that as 2025 is where the next Batman takes place.
Okay.
So it's just flipped. I had it flipped. Yeah.
It just adds a little bit of confusion, though, because we're not seeing Bruce Wayne Batman here. Instead, he's dead. But then we're reading Dark Detective that's apparently 2 years in the future, and he's alive. And he's telling us about what happened. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's time jumping in a way that I hope connects by issue number 4s between both. So I that only adds. I just made you more confused. I didn't give you any answers on where the timeline of this stuff goes.
But I think that's fair, right? So we're kind of nearing the first month of Future State.
Mm-hmm.
And to be confused at the midpoint is probably in some ways intentional storytelling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now we're going to get to the flourish, to steal some of the language from the Prestige. And I think that's good if they can pull it off and they can make that work in a way that's fulfilling and satisfying, and not just, well, that was a fun experiment for a couple months and we sold some big ticket, high dollar books. I wanted to ask you guys, because I haven't been paying attention. So if you actually know this, awesome. If you're just going to speculate, that's good too. The name of the event is Future State, but part of me is concerned, and I'll phrase it as concerned, that we are actually getting a glimpse in what the future state business model of DC Comics is, with these fewer books, higher ticket prices, more content per book at that higher price. Do you have any feel, Peter, I'll start with you, that if that model of publication will continue past this story event and really be the future state of DC Comics after we get into March?
I mean, they've already spilled the beans on this. Like, first of all, Future State's got price points all over the place. They got $8, $6, and then $4 books. And then if you look at the April solicitations, there are the Superman books, I believe, are $5.99 with backstories. So there's several books at higher price points with backstories. So they're putting more pages and they're trying to sell you more pages with extra stories. So I think that's what this is. I think a lot of this is also, I feel like, this is, BOF alum, Justin Kowalski's theory, not mine, but a lot of this is probably like 5G cut in half. Like, all right, let's do this in 2 months. Let's cut this down. And while AT&T, everyone's favorite company because of the Snyder Cut, such a great group of people. They love those guys, but AT&T trying to figure out how to, print less books and make more money. And I think the $8 price book is something they're going to, they're considering. That's why everything is so that's
$8, man.
You $8, $7. Like, that's
when a young Garret Grev,
that's what this is.
When a young Garret Grev was really stepping foot into the world of comic book collecting, I remember taking my $1.25 and heading to the Brainerd, Minnesota bookstore every Tuesday, because the nice lady that managed the place got the comic books delivered on Tuesdays, even though they weren't supposed to go on the rack until Wednesday morning. And I would get my copy of whatever Batman and Superman title was getting released. I can get 2 books every week.
You came
for $2.50.
That nice little Garret boy.
Yeah.
Oh, come on over here, Garret.
Look at this little chubby cheek goofball walking in here, just like salivating over, Man of Steel 27. Mm-hmm. It just blows my mind that we could possibly get to the point where it's $8 book.
Yeah.
It's like, it's $9 beer night.
But I $8 might be a little steep, but I definitely think that this is something that they're thinking about. Like, I looked at this yesterday. I was watching YouTube videos and stuff, and it's just interesting how they're trying out different things. And again, they're putting backstories and other things, and they've done this before. This isn't anything really new. I've been reading a lot of back issues, and during the 70s, in every issue of Detective Comics, there was a Green Arrow story.
Sure.
Now, granted, the book was a lot cheaper back then. They weren't even $2 books. There was like $1.50, but inflation. Yeah, figure it out. So this isn't anything really new, but I do think, that AT&T is trying to figure things out. So that's it. And, a lot of people say that they're going to stop publishing stuff and start doing more trades and less comic books. So,
well, I'll say this, and Laura, I want to get your final thoughts too. I have over the years, in particular in this past year with the pandemic, but then about 6-7 months before that, I've shared my local comic book place shut down. I've shifted a lot of my reading into trades, and I will, when I get a chance, go pick up back issues. But I've shifted a lot of my physical purchasing into trades, and I never thought I would be a primary trade guy, but that's where I've landed. Just kind of from I'm not going to drive 30 minutes to another comic book store and risk exposure or whatever else while we're going through this. But, hopefully I'll get back into buying single issues, and I hope they're not all $8 each. Lauer, any parting thoughts on this subject, man?
I can't wait for Dark Detective, the next chapter of that. Next Batman, I'm going to keep reading it because I'm reviewing it. I'll see it till the end. It's also only 4 issues total, so that's not a big deal. And it's not bad. It's just,
no,
okay.
It's not. It's not
okay. And so I'd like to see where it ends up so that I have their whole vision for now, at least in those 4 issues, to kind of like judge it by itself.
Man, when I was in high school playing football, I played with these 2 brothers, Trevor and Tori. And Trevor was insanely good, just incredibly talented from the time we were little kids. And he went on and played D1 football, really talented individual. His brother, Tori, was good. He was a good player, really good player, was more than an adequate high school football player. But between the two, when he stacked up next to Trevor, it was like, oh, Trevor's incredible. Kind of Tori never got a second look. I'm worried that will happen a little bit with the next Batman and Dark Detective, because I think the next Batman is a perfectly good story. It just kind of pales in comparison to its brother Trevor. If you followed that one.
Hey, you can get a scholarship for D3 football as well. So it's all
hey,
good.
Man. Hey, I know some guys that did very well for themselves playing D3 football. So, all right, guys, that wraps up the content we had planned for you tonight. Thank you ever so much for listening whenever it is. Morning, afternoon, evening, on your commute, in a gym if you're still going to a gym, whatever. It's all good, man. Mr. Lauer, if people want to interact with you more beyond this here podcast, let them know how to do that, if you would be so kind.
Well, as I've mentioned a few times in this, I write reviews and some other different articles and posts for the BatmanOnFilm.com. Just go there and you can find me and a bunch of my posts. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Lauer_Ryan. Lauer is spelled like lower. But I'm also the host of the Batman Book Club, a podcast that explores the Dark Knight library that both of you gentlemen have been on a lot of times. And coming up very, very soon is Peter Verra and his best pal in the world, Eric Holzman, for a Straight Out of Gotham Batman Book Club crossover episode that will be dropping in the next couple days. Our topic at hand, Future State. What? And we go into the nitty gritty of the next Batman and Dark Detective. So if you liked what we said here, we go into it a lot more detail with that. And then also in the horizon will be Mr. Garret Grev himself returning to the show. So follow that on Twitter at the Batman BC.
You don't say. I will look forward to all of those things.
This was news to Garret.
I don't. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Whatever could I have been bothering you to talk about next? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Peter, let the people know what they need to know, sir.
You can follow me on social media. That's Instagram, Twitter, and Zack Snyder's favorite Vero at Pete Illustrated. You can follow my show handles that I co-host with the champion of Long Island. That is Eric Holzman, straight_O_G on both Twitter and Instagram. Please follow our Facebook group, Straight Outta Gotham. Please follow our Facebook fan page, Straight Outta Gotham. And you can check out my reviews of Dark Detective, Detective Comics, action figures, Funko Pops, all the good stuff at BatmanOnFilm.com, as well as Batman on Film YouTube. And Garret, you can take it away.
Well, guys, I've been thinking about how I was going to say this, because I normally say, thank you for listening. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I love to interact. You can follow me over at Twitter, where I'm the most easily found, where my handle is at Garret Wato. That is GarretWato. You can still follow me there. There's an issue with that account that I'm working through. You can still follow me there. It's just fine. If you want to catch up with me in the meantime, you can follow me at Free Garret Wato. That is FreeGarretWato. Free Garret Wato. Spread the word. We want to get that account back. It's a very interesting long story. It's all detailed there if you want to find out. But you can read my written reviews of both Justice League and Batman Superman over at the BOF website. Got some movie reviews and a couple other things there if you like to read the words that I write instead of just listen to the words that I say. I would very much appreciate if you check it out. For Ryan, Peter, I'm Garrett. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you. We'd like to have you come back. As always, come back to the Batcave, and good night.
Booyah.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jet and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.